What's up, guys? Lewi here. I am joined today by a very special guest, my homie and one of my business partners, Brian Quick. How you doing, brother?
Dude, man, doing great. Besides the voice, I'm all right. Let's go.
You sound all sexy and husky. What's going on? You getting over a cold?
Yeah, I have a respiratory infection, and it also doesn't help that I have one vocal cord that works only.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
who needs to, or however many you're supposed to get.
yeah. My wife doesn't mind it. She doesn't mind it most of the time.
Love it. Well, I'm excited to jam out about this. I think this is a very, very important topic for everyone, but for realtors especially. We're in a market that's shifting right now. I feel over the last couple of years, this game has been relatively easy for people, and now things are shifting. We're seeing that the realtor count is going down.
Yeah,
We're seeing people fall out of the business. We're seeing people struggling. And there's a lot of factors that play into that. But I think one of them is resilience. And I think that's a topic where you specialize, whether that was fortunate or unfortunate that you specialize in this topic. So why don't you maybe kind of just give us a kind of background, kind of brief history, kind of maybe a little bit about what your story is, however much you want to share, and then we can kind of jam out on this topic.
yeah, for sure. So I don't have a real estate background actually. So I grew up playing drums, and went right out of high school to touring with bands. Moved out to Nashville and played at all the arenas that I could and living the dream. But it kind of came down to I was gone from my family for 4 weeks, sometimes a month at a time, and I kind of checked off all the boxes that I wanted to do. So I wanted to figure out something that allowed me to be with people, and I've always been good at marketing and sales, so it's just something that I figured I'd hop into, and didn't realize that when I got into it, I would fall in love with it. And so I got into the real estate game right when COVID happened, and which was an interesting time to get into it because it just everything shut down, and it was just I was trying to learn from square one, and we had just had a new baby, and so we actually moved back to Charlotte, North Carolina. And when we got back to North Carolina, I had some mentor help, but man, I started to feel odd right when we moved back, and I started losing hearing, started losing my voice, and started just to feel ill. And this was in like March of 2021. And I kind of let it grow and gradually get worse. And by the next thing I know, December 29th, I have to go to the hospital. I go to the hospital, and the next thing I remember is being at Duke Hospital 3 weeks later. And I was intubated, I was on life support, ended up having a heart attack, died 3 times, literally like flatlined, coded 3 times. Couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. So they ended up having to put me on the last form of life support. Now, keep in mind, throughout those 9 months of being sick, I was still a brand new agent trying to figure it out and not really doing any deals, to be honest with you. I think I did 2 deals between that 9 month period, because most of the time I was feeling like I couldn't even get out of bed.
Hmm.
Um, and so money was tight. My marriage was on the rocks. My kids were just, wondering what was wrong with dad. And so it was just a really tough 9 months. And I was just ready to give up on life in that moment, to be honest with you. I wasn't suicidal, but I was just like, well, if this is how I'm going, I'm ready to go.
Yeah,
Um, and
that's
so,
that's so just kind of rewind a little bit.
yeah, sorry.
Just no, you're good because like it's such an insane turn of events. Like before this, you were good, you were healthy, you were playing drums, like you were like getting
Yeah.
into real estate, like everything was all good, and then it just switched.
Yeah, it just switched. And keep in mind also, since we're talking about resilience, it took me 6 times to pass the test. Um,
I
so,
got mine was
I,
three.
so
Yeah.
I, so a side funny story, like 1 minute. So in Tennessee, well, I guess I don't know. I never had to take the test in North Carolina because it's a reciprocity state. I just had to do post licensing. But in Nashville, you have to take a state and a national. So when I first went and took the test, I passed the state the first time, but failed the national. So I had to take it again, but I only had to take the national. So I took the national and failed it again. Had to wait 30 days. So waited 30 days, went back, took the national again, failed it again. And this time I had to wait another 30 days and take the state all over again, and take both of them over again. Went back, took both of them, failed the state and passed the national.
Oh,
Right? And it's all right. It took me 5 times. And then the last time I just had the state and I took that and I finally passed it. So it took me 5 times to get that
wow, dude.
license. But I knew I had to continue with it.
Yeah.
I had to do something else. And I was so far into it. I was like, I'm not getting out of it now.
Yeah.
But yes, I was perfectly healthy coming up to it. And doctors to this day still don't know what flipped it. Could have been just, I could have got sick, could have got a virus, and my body just attacked the wrong cells.
Wow.
I did not have COVID, or nor did I get the COVID shot beforehand either with that.
Wow.
So I get asked that all the time.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Yeah.
That's wild, terrifying, and I mean inspiring. So okay, so you kind of come through like this event, you wake up in the hospital 3 weeks later and stuff, then like obviously like you're not like, oh, okay, I'm good to go back to the gig, like let's start selling homes again. Like how long did that journey take?
Yeah. So I had to relearn how to walk, talk, eat, everything.
Oh my gosh.
So I started to get approved to even just stand up in February. So I was in the hospital for a whole month, just on a feeding tube, just intubated pretty much. Any movement was just like finger movements, toe movements, etc. So I had to relearn how to talk. I had to have a speech therapist come in, teach me how to talk again. Literally had to go back to being like, beep, beep, had to relearn how, like I'm teaching my 2-year-old.
Wow.
And then I had to relearn how to walk. And literally for me at the time, like I'll never forget it, just being able to sit up felt like I was sweating out of like exhaustion, as if like I had just ran a mile or two just to sit up. So I lost like 60 pounds in that month. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, so I looked weird. It was all bony and my beard was just everywhere.
Yeah.
It didn't look like myself. I didn't feel like myself.
So
Um,
at that point, then, like in that point, that's got to be. I mean, for most people, that's got to be the lowest point. That right? I mean, where was your head at that point?
well, once I realized where I was, because at first the whole month I didn't know what was happening. I was so out of my mind and on drugs and seeing crazy things, and I was just on another world or another realm or
Mm,
whatever. But once I came back to, um, I think the first question my wife tells me I asked was like, "Why did this happen to me?" I don't remember asking her that, but
mm,
I remember asking her why, and she didn't have an answer for me. However, once I started to come back to, and genuinely, once I finally was able to like communicate a little bit and talk and think in my right mind, I actually felt like it was a fresh start
mm.
for me. And I knew I could either go this two ways: one, as a victim or as a warrior. And I knew that in my mind. I was like, I can play this card of, I guess if this is what's going to happen to me, this is just my life now. And this is the way it's going to be. Or I could go at this and beat this and continue to just try to be an example for my boys every single day, be there for my boys, and show what death to life really is. Uh,
Wow.
and so I had that choice. And there were moments during personal training that I was like, maybe I do want to just go the victim route because
Mm,
this sucks. I mean, I take 2 steps and I'm out of breath. And how long am I going to be in a wheelchair for a year? Because that's what they were telling me. I was going to be in a wheelchair for a year. We had to move because my house had stairs. So I wasn't allowed to be in a home with stairs.
Wow.
So, excuse me. So we had to live with our parents. And just, I literally, once I got home mid February, I literally was not, I was just the same as I was in the hospital, just not tubed up, just at home because I couldn't walk very well still. Jennifer still had to pretty much do everything for me.
Mm.
I was still having to go to personal training and do all the things. I was just in a different location, which was nice to be out of the hospital, but it was somewhat almost worse being home and still not being able to do those things. And
Yeah.
technically still not home because we were with our parents.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because I know you, so I know like how much of a dedicated husband, father you are, like provider, all the stuff that we do as dads and husbands, and it's like to have that piece stripped away from you, never mind like the physical and all that piece, but like that piece internally, like that's such a huge like identity piece. I think for a lot of us who have families and stuff, like that's who our identity is. Like we provide for our families, so it's like having that piece taken away is like, that's got to be brutal.
Watching my wife have to drive to work every day, then take care of the kids full time and
Mm.
do everything by herself while I'm just laying there like I can't do it was worse than being actual sick
Mm.
mentally and
Yeah, yeah,
emotionally. Like you just said, like I wanted so bad just to be able to relieve her for 5 minutes and let her have a shower, you know. And so, but I couldn't. I could
yeah.
not. I was unable to do that until mid June.
Wow.
So I finally passed PT in June. I wasn't perfect by all means, but I was about 70%, which is a miracle in all things because the doctors were saying he's not going to be eating for a year. He's not going to be, you know, he's not going to be walking for a year. Any of these things, expect a year. And June, I was eating a cheeseburger
Mm.
again and walking predominantly on my own and able to get myself dressed. And I was actually trying to get back to the grind again. I literally remember being in the bed and just like chatting with people. And my wife was like, "What are you going to do when they do want your help? You can't drive." But I was so anxious just to get back to some normalcy,
Yeah.
you
Wow.
know. So because I didn't get approved to drive until like July, because my reflexes were.
Yeah.
But one last thing also, because I died 3 times and was under, it is a miracle beyond anything that I'm actually able to have this conversation with you. I should not be able to communicate, period, because of the oxygen that did not get to my brain when it
Yeah.
needed. So it's crazy.
Dude,
It's bizarre.
that
It's wild.
yeah. I remember the first time we met, I was like, this is one of the most incredible people and stories I've ever heard in my life. Because there's a lot to get into, and and
Yeah.
there's a whole bunch of other stuff. But like, I think the biggest message that I get from you is like resilience, like refusing to accept the story of victimhood, and I guess it's just the way it is. I can't do anything about it,
Yeah.
and choosing that warrior path of no, I'm in charge of my own destiny, or God, or whichever way you want to look at it. But like,
Yeah.
I'm meant to do something else. I'm supposed to keep driving here. So bringing this into our kind of industry, right? It's like, and it's funny to even like change lanes right there, because it's like going from that story to like
Yeah.
real estate is like all my excuses in the world just like fade into like the abyss, like there's no excuse humanly possible that I could put on myself after hearing your story. So but it is still relevant because I guess people's people's resilience can only match the trials and tribulations that they get in their life, right? There's a spectrum of like your story to like someone's who's just like struggling to get deals, and even though like they're worlds apart, for them that's real. It's real. Like it's the toughest thing they faced so far. Maybe they got
Yeah.
into real estate the last couple of years it was cake. They provided a great, living for their family, whatever. And now the market's starting to shift and deals are starting to dry up. Homes are starting to come off the market and all that kind of stuff. So I guess like the lessons that you've learned, because I know you're very successful in real estate, like what things translate into like your daily life, or like working with clients or working the market, or if you don't have a big pipeline, like is there a mental like mindset you go to from the lessons you've learned, or is it more just like you just keep pushing and keep pushing? Like what does that look like for you in this market?
Yeah, so I think it's both. And so, some people may disagree with me on this, but I firmly believe this from my own experience. We were talking about my health and how like I was healthy and it just happened. Well, I don't actually believe it just happened. I still take responsibility for my illness,
Hmm.
uh, because thoughts are truly things, and thoughts are so powerful. And one thing that not a lot of people know about me, and I'll get to that question, but is that I had terrible health anxiety before then. I was always worrying about getting sick, and I genuinely believe I thought myself into sickness.
Wow.
I genuinely, so I take responsibility for what happened to me. To translate that to what is happening in the real estate market, every single thought we make is a seed to a consequence, whether it's positive or negative.
Hmm.
And so if you're struggling to get leads, or you feel like just the market's against you, none of that's true. It's really, what are you thinking and perceiving to attract that? Because somebody out there in your location is wanting to buy right now. Someone. And why not you to help them? Someone out there is ready to sell their house. I don't care what the market is. If you go look at the hot sheets on your MLS, there's there's homes being listed every day,
Yeah.
every single day. So why not you? That's why I think of it. Whenever I'm seeing all these homes, I'm like, why I should be listing that house? Not
Hmm.
that that listing agent's bad or wrong, but that should be me. Like, I take ownership in everything and every thought that I make.
Hmm.
And so for me, whenever you're sitting there and you're just like, when I have these moments, I think we've all been through the moments where it's like, man, like we're in this roller coaster of a business. And right now I'm at the bottom of the hill and I need to get back up here again.
Hmm.
I don't like the idea of being like this. I would rather be up here like this.
Yeah.
So how can I get to this point, right? And so I have to think like this. I can't think like here. I got to think up here. And I
Hmm.
think what happens is it's so easy to get caught in this mindset down at the bottom of the hill of the roller coaster of, well, you know what? There's just no one out there for me right now to help. Like I just don't know how to find them. And the problem with that is actually you have to ask yourself, what am I doing to find them? Am I looking in all the wrong directions? Do I need to maybe take a different route that's uncomfortable to me? I literally, like, I hate door knocking. And I went door knocking the other day and I literally got bit by a dog door knocking on the leg. And I literally was like, this is why I freaking don't door knock. Right? This is why I don't do it. However, my mindset was like, because I was knocking in like a very luxurious area. And I was like, you know what? Like, if that deal, that knock, that dog bit me could turn into a sale eventually, and it will.
Hmm.
And I hate the word if. I just said the word if, and then I changed it to will. I think that when it comes to resilience and finding your path, you have to understand that every single negative is a way for you to get stronger and a way for you to get closer to where you need to go.
Hmm.
But you have to see it that way, and you have to be humble enough to figure out what you're doing wrong. Because if you're not getting deals, it's not the market, it's not the people, it's you. At the
Hmm.
end of the day, you have to swallow that pill and say to yourself, I'm the problem if I'm not selling houses.
Yeah. Dude,
You know,
that's the one single thing that when I started doing that, taking personal responsibility for everything, my life changed so dramatically overnight. Like everything, like my family, my fitness, my business, like every single piece of my life, when I started taking personal responsibility for absolutely everything, it changes your whole like outlook on life. Even like when the kids are driving you crazy, you're like, okay, what has led to this? Like, what has led to my kid having a meltdown right now? And yes, there's obviously parts of blame and stuff like that on them, just, but it's like, okay, well, actually, no, I could have taken him outside earlier for like 2 hours, but I was on here doing work that doesn't matter, so it's like looking through that lens is huge. And I think that's where real resilience can be built. And the other part of it for me, like you're saying, like not riding that roller coaster, being up there, like I always think about detaching from the outcome. I just do the work. And I think we are in such a reaction based industry where people only start working when they have the lead or they have this or like that's ready to go. I'm going to chase this. Like nobody's just, it's not nobody, but like a large majority of agents don't do the daily work involved in just running your business.
Yeah.
And it's such a gap that I see with so many people. And you and I know that, like, you and I work with a lot of agents together and we see it all the time. It's like, this is the problem. Like you're not working on this like it's your business. You're just
Yeah.
working like a reactive salesperson. And that's not how this is done.
Yeah, and it could be the simplest things. Like if you're a new agent and you're just trying to get deals, or just trying to even get prospects and leads, it could be as simple as go to your whatever brokerage you are, go to your store, order a few shirts with your brand on it, and just wear it when you go to places with a bunch of people. And you're already mad. You're literally branding yourself. You don't even have to talk about real estate. I've done it before, and I went to one of my son's events, had an EXP shirt on. Someone was like, "Hey, you work for EXP? That's really cool." I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "Oh, yeah, it's the virtual brokerage thing, right?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah, it is. Literally, we're listing their house next month for it."
Wow.
And I just wore it because I have this thing ABB, always be branding,
Yeah.
and it's just like I didn't work for that. I just spent $30 on a T-shirt.
Yeah.
And it really is just a conversation starter. It's not necessarily the be all end all. It's just a way to start making conversations.
Mm.
And if you have a hard time in this business, if you have a hard time starting conversations with just people, that helps just bridge that gap of something to start that conversation about.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
I love
it's,
that.
it's just finding little ways to start conversations without having to feel like you're being salesy or pushy.
Yeah, for sure. I
You
love
know,
that. I'm going back to something you said. You said your thoughts are the seeds for
your consequences.
your consequences. I need to write that
Yeah.
down. That's a zinger, dude. Your
Yeah,
thoughts are your seeds
whatever.
for your consequences. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, and it's because it'll produce it, and you'll start believing it if you tell yourself that enough.
And that's a huge piece of what we're seeing right now. The market's shifting. Leads are drying up. There's no homes to sell. Interest rates are so high.
That's
All
it.
these things that we're tearing ourselves. It's like, I think one of the big issues is that like our some of the agents that we work with, like they're not being the source of authority and the source of the message to the clients, to your people, that your demographics. We're letting like mainstream media
Yep.
and like other sources like that dictate the story that they're telling people about real estate and the real estate market and all that stuff. And we're just accepting it. It's like, well, I guess, and it's like, well, actually interest rates are high, and it's like we let our mind play these tricks on us where we have to be bulletproof instead. And it's like when I think about these things, it's like, oh, interest rates are coming up to 7%. It's like, cool. All right, well, who could benefit from that? Well, I guess, we'll look at like first time home buyers who weren't able to buy a home in the last 2 years because there were so many appraisal gaps and cash coming in and stuff like that. They'll have a higher interest rate, but historically not that high. Then they can refinance afterwards. So it's like the market always has space for someone to win, and you just need to figure out who it is. So it's like shifting that pattern of thought is a huge piece of the puzzle for me.
You have to think creatively, because here's the thing: when interest rates are high, in my opinion, who are the best people to reach out to? Renters, because they're paying 100% interest already. So whatever interest rate you get them is better,
Yeah.
right? And so I love like rent. I mean, renters are great for that type of interest rate hike. But when you go back and look at data, we're not really we don't need to get into that
No.
conversation. But here's the thing is like I think the problem also is like people feel confidence. It doesn't matter, if they know you, know me, doesn't matter. People feel confidence. And if you're telling yourself these thoughts of negativity, whenever you do actually talk to somebody, that's going to come out to them,
Mm,
right? And so you have to feel confident in your mind in order to portray that confidence to that person. And there are so many I do little things all the time that most people don't think about. Read psychology books. The reverse psychology is a huge part of this business. My
mm.
wife did it to me. My wife does it to me all the time now. When I'm like, when I got dog bit the other day, and I was like, oh no, what if I have rabies? I started, my natural health anxiety started to come back.
Yeah.
She's like, yep, you probably do have rabies. You're gonna die.
Oh.
Right? She pulled that like, yep, you probably do. You got it. Right? And so when someone, it started getting my wheels turning. Like when I get that response of, there's just no inventory. Hey, you know what? You know what? You're right. Inventory is a little bit lower. That's an amazing time for you to sell.
Yeah.
So you got to reword this and reiterate it to them. But in
Yeah.
order to do that, your thoughts have to be there.
Yeah. Big time. We'll wrap up in a few minutes here, but
And you're
in terms of those kind of books, like when you were going through this stuff, I guess, let me ask you this, was there sources that you turned to, books, reading, podcasts, anything that like you started consuming that helped you through your recovery, but then also like, day to day these days?
Yeah, so I read about 2 books a month. I try
Oh,
to.
wow.
Um, I, I, I like to read, so I read about 20 to 30 pages a day in a book.
Hmm.
But I'm a man of faith, so the Bible was always there with me, man.
Yeah.
I have to just say that,
Number one book.
yeah, it was the way, yeah. But one book that as always has stuck with me is Think and Grow Rich.
Hmm.
I read that book once a year, at least, and it's just helped me learn how to write my goals down and read them every day. Kind of like we're talking about the repetition of thought. Really, man, thoughts are everything. Like we were just talking about it. And if you could sit there and you could choose, you have two directions to choose: confidence or not confidence, or whatever other term you want to use for that. And if you want to be successful, the ladder is not going to work for that. Right now, I'm reading As a Man Thinketh, and it's challenging me for sure. Um, but I read all different kinds of books. There's nothing really specific that I've read. Honestly, I listen to a lot of Mike's stuff,
Yeah.
and just kind of absorbed as much information as I could on real estate. And,
Hmm.
just sat there to try to gain that confidence back of feeling like I was worthy enough to get back out there.
Hmm.
And so that I could actually do this business
Yeah.
work. But for me, man, I just really focus a lot on my thought life and emotional life.
Hmm.
Because I think the key to resilience is being strong here. And if we let one negative seed get into our mind, it's like a virus.
Hmm.
It's a virus. It's 10 times harder to get that negative thought out than it is to get an easy, good, positive thought in.
Hmm.
For some reason, our brain likes to absorb those a
Yeah.
lot faster.
Yeah.
It
It's like
takes
they're
two
more
or three.
delicious or something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really try to focus on just gratification of who I am
Hmm.
as a man, as a realtor, as a person, and it's not to be cocky. There's a big difference between confidence and cocky. I don't walk
Yeah.
in places and think I'm the best or the man or anything in that, but I'm willing to step up to anybody. And even if I lose, the fact that I stood up was enough.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah. Man. That's so powerful, dude. It's so powerful. It's such a fascinating story you have. I think it happened for a purpose. I think maybe this is the message that, that maybe only you can bring to this space. There's I know a couple of people who have pretty crazy stories, but yours is like pretty incredible. And, I appreciate you obviously coming on here and sharing it and being vulnerable.
yeah,
It's like, it's very, very challenging to me, honestly, because I haven't been through that kind of resilience. I've been through other resilience, but not to that extent. And it's like, what would I have done in that situation? Would I have got through it? I'm not, I'm not sure. Honestly, I think
Yeah.
these days I probably would. Back in the day, maybe not. So that's huge, dude. That's huge, huge.
Yeah. You know,
Um,
it's just one of those things that's kind of like you don't know what you're going to be like until you're in it. But I do know, like you just said, maybe you would now. I do know that I'm armored up for whatever needs to happen,
mm,
and I'm
yeah,
ready to go. You know, I'm always going to have the warrior mindset now,
yeah.
not the victim mindset. And I think once you can adapt that warrior mindset and tell yourself, you know, and nothing's going to stop me from this, and until I'm not breathing,
Mm,
nothing's going to stop you.
yeah. I love
You
it,
know,
dude. I love
so
it, man. Well, listen, you and I work with a lot of agents together. Where can people find you? I'll put links below in the comments and stuff. But where can people find you online?
yeah, so I use Instagram a lot. So it's the Brian Quick is my Instagram handle. And then Brian Quick RE is my YouTube channel as well. And I post, 50/50, a lot of agent growth stuff and as well as listings and real
Yeah.
estate material as well. And so, you got that right there. That's fine.
Yeah. ABB, baby.
Always be
ABB.
Brandon, baby.
I love it. Well, listen, dude, I'm so thankful for you, man. I'm so glad that that we get to work together in my life, man. You're an inspiration for sure. So I appreciate you, dude. If you guys have any questions for Brian or anything like that, you can drop them in the comments below, or you can reach out to him. I'll put all the links for his stuff in the description as well. But Brian, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so
Yeah, man.
much. And yes, stay resilient, everyone. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.